Stephanie from History Hustle. I'm standing here in the city of Bandung. We're on the island of Java in Indonesia. And as you can see, in comparison with the picture before, there's a little bit more traffic nowadays. The picture you saw was a picture taken in the 20s when Indonesia was part of the Netherlands and it was called the Dutch East Indies. This was called the Grote Postweg, the main postway, and that was called the Karreweg. It means like the carriage way. And that there was like the main shopping district for the Dutch elite. Karreweg, Jalan Braga nowadays, the shopping district for the Dutch elite. Alright, back to the Dutch East Indies. It was 1800, 1st of January, and the VOC, the Verenigde Oost-Indische Compagnie, the United East India Company, was no more. Bankruptcy. And all its possessions, debts and administration went to the Dutch state. Now from 1811 till 1814, the Dutch possessions in the East Indies were ruled by the British. I'll talk about that in this video. Check that one out. And in 1860, the Indonesian archipelago was officially called the Dutch East Indies and became part of the Dutch state. During the 19th century, the Dutch waged several colonial wars to gain control over the enormous amount of islands. They did that with a colonial army, het KNIL, het Koninklijk Nederlands-Indisch Leger, the Netherlands Royal East Indies Army. Most of the soldiers were from the Indies itself, Javanese, Ambonese, which were led by white European officers. And so, the Netherlands was able to control these enormous amounts of lands, which were far bigger than the motherland itself. Now, from 1830, the Dutch applied the infamous cultuurstelsel, culture system, which meant that Javanese farmers has to donate 20% of its crops, of its soil, to the European market. And if they were not able to do that, because they didn't have enough ground, they had to work for the Dutch. Forced labor for 66 days a year. However, because of abuse of the system by European officials who exploited the farmers, famine struck. Many people died, and the Indonesian population lived in extreme poverty. There were protests in the Netherlands, and one of the most famous ones is the book Max Havelaar, written by Multatuli. In 1870, the system was abolished by new laws, the agrarian law and the sugar law. However, poverty remained. By the end of the 19th century, more and more Dutch politicians argued to do something about the extreme poverty the Indonesians were living in. And in 1901, they launched their ethical policy, which was by 3 pillars. The first was irrigation, to improve the agricultural techniques as well as the infrastructure. The second one was immigration, to immigrate Indonesians from Java to other islands because Java became overpopulated. And the third one was education, to educate the Indonesian people. This was not a great success, and to illustrate it, by the 30s, most of the population of Indonesia was still illiterate. However, those who do got education, they became nationalists who wanted Indonesia to become an independent nation. Tensions arose, especially during the 30s, because of the economic depression. And then, in 1942, the Japanese invaded. The ethical policy was well meant, but not a great success, and this eventually led to the downfall of the Dutch Empire. How this happened, I'll talk about in the upcoming videos. Click here to watch the video about the Japanese conquest of the Dutch East Indies. This one about the Japanese occupation of the Dutch East Indies, and this one about the Indonesian War of Independence. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.